What's good, family? It's your boy Old Soul J, and I'm back with another video. I'm about to admit something right now. When I first started making content, I used to hide it from people. Like people that I knew in my immediate life. I used to hide it from my peers. I used to hide it from new people I would meet, girls I was dealing with. And I used to hide it because I understood that most people are not consciously on a level to where they can receive or process the type of information I was talking about, or at least they would judge me for it. Yeah, I know it sounds hard to believe. I was afraid of people's judgment, and that's one of the things that I speak about most on this channel, on my TikTok, wherever. I speak about so much about not caring about what people think and how that holds you back, and I'm speaking from experience. So I'm gonna give y'all a little backstory, a little bit more about myself, because most of my videos I don't really speak about myself much. I just usually stick to the topic and speak on the topic. You know, I give my words of wisdom. But to give y'all a little bit of backstory on myself and the journey, and I'm still on this journey, but the journey of me creating high conscious type of content, self-awareness type of content, spiritual type of content, or just self-improvement type of content. Back in 2020 during COVID, and this actually, if you're spiritual, you probably know of this, but this was actually a time where a lot of people in the world had their spiritual awakening. This is when I had an awakening. To some people that might sound like, what, spiritual awakening? What are you talking about? If you know, you know. If you really, really are there, then there was a moment, or at least a time period, where you really woke up. And that time period for me was 2020. And the common theme for a lot of people who woke up was they went through some type of traumatic experience. Something intense happened for them to open their eyes to something. For me, at that time, I was actually depressed. I was depressed. We were locked in. Everyone was stuck in their houses, and that wasn't the reason why I was depressed. But I do remember how I felt at that time, and it wasn't because of those things. It was just because I felt lost. I remember questioning life, questioning God, questioning the meaning of life, questioning what am I supposed to do, just not being happy, or just feeling empty, just not fulfilled, just not satisfied with the possibilities of what life was offering me, or where I was going, or what this life was, what it seemed, my perspective at least on what life was. I wasn't happy with it. I couldn't really give you an exact reason. I just wasn't happy. And there's a lot of people like that today. And I remember I knew I was destined to be spiritual when I look back before 2020, before I had an awakening. There were little signs that if you knew me, you would know. Like I was heading on that path. I just didn't really notice it myself. Like, for example, I started meditating in 2018. I didn't know anybody who meditated. What pushed me to meditate? It was my intuition. It was my higher self. For some reason, I took an interest in meditation, and I started meditating. This is also around the time where I tried to quit smoking weed. I didn't officially quit smoking weed till about 2022, around that time, because I was heavily addicted to it. So I was like on and off, but I started in like 2015, 2016. So when I got to 2018, that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna stop, because meditation just opened my mind a little bit, made me more self-aware, and made me realize that, I was better off without it, but I was still addicted. So, and I would also, because I didn't understand what I was doing consciously, like with meditation, I was also like in and out of certain levels of consciousness. I was fluctuating, and I would be on and off of weed. But that was where it really started. When I would meditate. When I was younger, people always would say I always had some wise words to say. Like, even when I remember in high school, some people would tell me that, oh, you should write a book or something, or when I would give like certain advice about certain things, because I'm an old soul. I've been an old soul before I knew I was an old soul, obviously. I would see like little things online sometimes, like spiritual things that I didn't necessarily know what being spiritual was, but the things that they would say, I would save them to my phone because it resonated with me. And it wasn't until 2020 when I actually was like really down and depressed. Well, actually before 2020, I think it was around 2019. It was a little bit after high school. I grew up in a Catholic home, or Catholic or Christian home. I grew up with a family and a background that believed in, Christianity, just Jesus, God, whatever that's the type of background I grew up in, and that's what I grew up believing in. You know, I used to pray sometimes to God. I used to pray. I used to say in Jesus' name, amen, when I used to pray when I was a kid. Because that's what I was conditioned to believe in. That's what I grew up on. That's my background. When I turned 19, I started to question things more. And I looked in, I read the children's Bible when I was a kid. But when I was older, I started looking into the actual Bible because I was questioning life. I was questioning, how did this all start? What are we? Why am I here? All these types of things. And I started reading into history, and the history books would always start with like Christopher Columbus and slavery, and you know, like the history books that we learned in school. I was looking into those things first, and I started looking into the Bible, and it made me wonder about other religions. Like, why is there so many religions? Why do we just decide that this one is the truth? I realized I was wise enough to understand that I only chose this to be the truth because this is what I was raised to believe in. So it made me look into other things, but not so much because I was drowning so much in my depression around 2020 that I didn't look too much into it. I just believed in God. Of course, I just knew there was a higher power. I knew, you know, I questioned my religion at the time when I was religious. But I just knew there was a higher power, right? So, like I was saying, I did pray because, like I said, I always believed in the higher power. No matter what I questioned, I always knew there was a higher power. And around the time I was depressed, there was this one night where I was praying with a lot of passion. And you know, one thing I learned later down the line in spirituality, what they talk about is when you do things such as prayer or manifestation or meditation, whatever you're doing, anything like that, it's more effective when you put emotion into it, because emotion is energy in motion. Where attention goes, energy flows. So yes, emotion is a great way to pour in energy into something that you're doing. So I was praying one night, super emotional. I was hitting my breaking point, and I literally was telling God, why am I here? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Do you even hear me right now? Are you listening to me? Are you acknowledging me? What am I supposed to do? Give me a sign that you're real. Give me a sign. Give me some type of direction of what I should do. How do I get out of this rut that I'm in? It was a lot more said. It was a lot more passionate. It was a lot more intense than that. But that night, I literally had an out-of-body experience. And I'm not going to get into depth about it, because for the people who haven't had that experience, they're not going to believe me. And the people who have had that experience, there's no need for me to really explain, because if you know, you know. But I had that realization of self, detached from the ego, detached from the idea of my human ego self, my self-image, my false image self. So I detached from it, and I started getting downloads. It's an intense type of experience, feeling. We're not going to get into that right now. Maybe sometime in the future I'll be more detailed about that exact awakening, what that awakening felt like. But when I had that awakening, I felt overwhelmed with bliss. I connected with God. I connected with my intuition. I connected with my higher self. I was awakened. It's a type of experience that can't be articulated in human words. And it made me wonder, where was this all my life? What is this? What am I experiencing? I felt like I just entered a new level of consciousness, which I literally did. And I started to look into it. I started to look things up on the internet. And then I started to find all different types of people talking about the same exact thing that I experienced. Talking about the same things that started to resonate with me. And that is how I realized honestly, what I really kept saying to myself before I even knew what spirituality was. I remember I kept saying to myself when I had that awakening, this is spiritual. This is spiritual. This is super spirit. Like, that's just what kept coming to my mind. I felt it was spiritual. And then I find spirituality. Coincidence, maybe? Hell no. Like, bro, you can't, like, literally I experienced something. This is not like I was influenced for something. I literally had an experience and then found people who literally explained the same type of experience, and that's where I started to dive into the rabbit hole. And initially I did tell people close to me, like loved ones, like family members, a girlfriend I had at the time, you know, but I was so loved, and luckily for me, nobody necessarily neglected me, but you know, they just didn't get it though, so it wasn't registering to them. You know what I mean? But when it came to people that I wasn't really exactly close to, or new people that I met, I kept that side hidden because I seen how my loved ones, yeah, they thought I was crazy. You know, they still loved me because of how deeply my bond was and my connection was with these people, because I have loving family and I had just loving people around me overall, that they still love me. But I knew they thought I was crazy. They thought I was tripping. They laughed. They said things like, "That's crazy. You're crazy. What are you talking about? You're tripping, whatever." So, of course, when you meet new people, you know, I used to hide these things. And soon after I had that awakening, something in me, my intuition, really, my higher self, I keep saying something as if I don't know, but I know what it is. My higher self pushed me to create content. Even though I knew, I learned at this point, after trying to wake up everyone around me, that you can't wake up somebody who's not meant to wake up. Like the great Bobby Hemmett said, everyone's soul, everyone's higher self gave their human self an alarm clock before they came here as to when they were going to wake up, whether that's in this lifetime or another lifetime. If you go into someone's, metaphorically speaking, if you go into someone's room and your alarm clock goes off hours before theirs and you try to wake them up, they're going to react negatively. They're going to react negatively. They're not going to be receptive to it because it's not their time to wake up yet. So I understood that, but something still in me was like, yo, make this content. Talk about the things that you're learning and discovering within yourself and make this content. This was 2020. At that time, I was making videos every day, but it wasn't for a long time. Maybe it was like a few months, maybe 2 months or something. I don't remember. But I literally stopped because I wasn't getting a lot of views. I mean, I did have a few videos that got a couple hundred, which I didn't realize it at the time. But for someone who's just started making content with no clout, no background, no nothing, that was actually a pretty good start. But I just didn't understand at the time how you have to really build a foundation before, you know what I mean? So I built quick momentum, but to me at the time, I didn't know that was actual momentum because I was comparing myself to people who already put in the work and was already established and had clout. You know, I just didn't understand. And, you know, I stopped. At first, I actually was posting it everywhere. I was at first, actually. I was at first posting it. I didn't have TikTok at the time, but I was posting it on my Instagram. I was posting it on my Facebook when I used to use Facebook. So I was posting it, actually. I wasn't hiding it initially when I first started it, but then I seen the judgment. I seen how people that I knew personally wasn't receptive to it, and that's when I started to hide it. That's when I stopped the YouTube. I actually stopped doing it overall, and when I eventually came back to it, like 2022 or something like that, 2023 or something like that, that's when I was hiding it. That's when I only wanted people to see it that I didn't know personally, and that was holding me back. Because I wasn't being my true authentic self unapologetically at all times. And how could I be a leader to people or give people advice when I wasn't being that person? At the very least, that's the bare minimum. Fast forward to 2024, 2025, I have fully embraced it and fully let that be my identity. Because I'm still aware of the false identity, the spiritual ego. I'm still aware of that in itself. But at the end of the day, I'm making this video to show you guys that when I speak about things, a lot of times it's because I've been through it before. Whether it was in this lifetime or the last. But this specific thing here, I've been through it in this lifetime. I was embarrassed. People laughed at me. People joked about it. People shamed me, they talked down on me, when really what I was doing was a positive thing. It hurt. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed of myself. But once I learned that this is who I truly was, and once I started to understand the reason that these people projected their negativity onto me and why it didn't really matter, once I truly understood that, then I started to walk in my path without any concern for judgment. That's where true freedom comes in. The truth shall set you free. Living your truth is freedom. And honestly speaking, if I could tell myself anything in 2020, the version of myself in 2020, if I could tell that person anything, I would tell that person, stop caring what they think and thinking that they care. Keep doing what you're doing and don't let the momentum stop. So because of that, I've had to start over. All because I was worried about what the next person thought when there's millions of people who understand what I'm on, what I believe, or what I see? Millions. And I just have to align with them. I just had to align with those people. There's your physical family, and then there's your soul family. Your soul family are the ones who are on your path. If you take anything from my videos or from this video alone, the main thing from the bottom of my heart, what I want people to understand is the only way that you will truly be free is if you live in your truth unapologetically with love, compassion, grace, and strength. Align on the path that you're supposed to be on. That's all I gotta say for today. Make sure you like and subscribe. I love y'all.